How a society treats children who break the law, that says a lot. For a long time, the focus was really just on punishment. But over in England and Wales, something of a quiet revolution has been happening, led by the Youth Justice Board. It's all built around a principle called child first. And honestly, it's a massive shift away from retribution and towards a system that's based on hard evidence and what actually works. So today, let's unpack what child first really is. All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at how this whole thing started, how a phrase turned into a philosophy. Then, and this is so important, we'll get into why they dropped the word offender. Next, we'll dig into the research that backs all this up. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the 4 core tenets that put it all into practice. And finally, we'll zoom out and see why this is so much bigger than just a new policy.
So, where did this idea even come from? Well, child first didn't just pop up overnight. It was a really careful, deliberate evolution. It started as a well-intentioned but kind of clunky phrase and grew into the core philosophy for the entire youth justice system.
Okay, so the journey kicks off in 2019. The Youth Justice Board rolls out this idea of child first, offender second. It's a great first step, right? And it gets written into the official standards pretty quickly. But, they kept learning and listening. And by 2021, they realized something absolutely crucial. They refined the principle and dropped offender second completely. It just became child first. Now, that might sound like a tiny change in wording, but as we're about to see, that little edit changed everything. And that leads us straight to the power of language. I mean, why was dropping that one word so incredibly important? What was so wrong with child first, offender second anyway? Well, it all boils down to the psychology of labels. The original phrase, child first, offender second, still glues that offender identity onto a kid, even if it's in second place. And that creates a stigma that is just so hard to shake off. But the new version, simply child first, is 100% positive. It totally shifts the focus from the bad thing they did to the person they are, a child. It's about seeing the whole person, not just one part of their story. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The whole point was to frame the principle in a way that was, quote, solely in positive child-centered terms, to avoid reproducing stigmatizing offender labels. I mean, words shape how we see the world, right? By changing the language, the system hopes to change how these kids are seen, and just as important, how they see themselves. It's about giving them a shot at a positive future, not locking them into a negative past. So, where did this strong belief in a child-centered approach come from? This wasn't just some gut feeling or a philosophical debate. The entire child-first principle is built on a rock-solid foundation of academic research. This is where we get to the evidence. Yeah, this change was not based on a whim. The Youth Justice Board actually commissioned a huge review of about 30 years of research from all over the world. And the results were just undeniable. A child-centered approach isn't the soft option. The data clearly shows it reduces reoffending, helps kids get back on track, and, get this, it makes communities safer for everyone. It's not about being soft on crime, it's about being smart on crime. And if there's one name you should connect with this, it's Professor Neil Hazel. His huge report, Child First Justice, basically became the academic bedrock for this entire policy. So this isn't about feelings or opinions. It's about following decades of data that all point in the exact same direction. Okay, so the evidence is there. But how does this big idea, this philosophy, actually work day to day on the ground? Well, it's all built around 4 core tenets that really translate the child-first principle into action. Here are the big 4. First, just see children as children. Simple, right? Second, focus on building a positive, pro-social identity. Third, you've got to collaborate with them and their families. And fourth, do everything you can to divert them away from the formal system and all the stigma that comes with it. Okay, let's break each one down. Now, this first tenet, it sounds so obvious, doesn't it? Seeing children as children. But in practice, it is absolutely revolutionary. It forces the system to look past the crime and ask the real questions. What has this child been through? Are we dealing with trauma here? Poverty? Racism? It's a real commitment to remembering that kids aren't just mini adults. Their brains are still developing, and their needs have to come first. The second tenet completely flips the old model on its head. For so long, the system just focused on deficits, on what's wrong with this kid. This is all about strengths. It asks, okay, what is this child good at? What are they passionate about? What are their strengths? And then it's about building on those things to help them create a new positive identity for themselves, one that doesn't involve offending. Tenet number 3 is all about a real shift in power. You see, the old way often involved things being done to a child. This tenet demands that things are done with them. It means actually listening, giving kids and their families a real voice in the plans and decisions that are going to affect their lives. We're talking about real participation, not just ticking a box. And the final tenet brings us right back to where we started, to those harmful labels. The research shows that the deeper a child gets tangled up in the formal justice system, the harder it is for them to ever get out. Every single contact risks reinforcing that negative identity. So the goal here is simple. Whenever it's safe and possible, divert children away from the system to protect their chance at just being a kid. So let's zoom out for a second, because Child First isn't just another program on a checklist. What we're really talking about is a deep, fundamental shift in the entire culture of youth justice. This source material uses this really powerful metaphor for it. Child First isn't a model, it's a lens. It's a new way of seeing everything in the system, from the courtroom to the police station to custody. It means that every single person involved has to look through this lens and ask themselves one simple question. Is what I'm doing really putting this child first? But look, a change this massive isn't easy, and it definitely isn't quick. This requires a huge cultural shift over time. It needs everyone to buy in. Police, judges, social workers, everybody. And most of all, it demands that all of us fundamentally change how we see a child who finds themselves in trouble with the law. And that really leaves us with a final powerful question to think about. If Child First is the lens we're all supposed to be looking through, what parts of the old system, what attitudes and practices need to be changed or even dismantled to bring a truly fair and effective youth justice system into focus?